we'll get going with the awards part of the evening while everyone is finishing up their entree and getting to the dessert, except me. So before we get going in with the awards, the last couple of months, hydrology in Canada had a couple of losses, and we'd just like to spend a minute talking about those before we go on. And I'd like to invite past president of the hydrology section, Sean Carey, to come up and say a few words.
Thanks, Rich. So I'm here on behalf of Dan Peters, the president of hydrology section, who couldn't be here tonight because he had other commitments. But this was a sad last few months for the hydrology section, the Canadian Geophysical Union. We had two long-standing members and friends who passed. The first I'd like to talk about is Stefan Pohl. Stefan was, did his PhD with Phil Marsh at the University of Saskatchewan when he was there. He spent many years there as a PhD student, as a postdoc. He had great contributions to snow melt, snow energy balances, and research related to snow in the Nunavut area. All those who knew Stefan, who was German, knew he was a great fan of Canada and all things Canadian. Stefan unfortunately passed away just after Germany beat Canada in the Olympics. And one of the saddest things was Stefan was too sick to see them win. But Stefan was a huge fan of Canada and Canadians. And this on your stage right, I suppose, is a picture of the Canadian flag on his at the memorial in Germany. So the hydrology section is quite sad. And remember Stefan for his contributions to cold region hydrology. On a more personal note, the fellow on the left, many of you know, Rick Janowitz was a dear, close friend of mine. Rick was one of the founding members of the Canadian Geophysical Union. He was a section head. He led the Northern Research Basins subcommittee. Rick was instrumental in advancing cold region hydrology in Canada. He was Yukon's operational flood forecaster for the last 35 years. He was the initiator and founder of the Wolf Creek Research Basin, and he was a tireless supporter of process hydrology and hydrological sciences in Canada. Rick recently retired, or was transitioning into retirement, and thankfully passed suddenly on a bike trip. Rick was one of my closest friends. I loved him very much, and it's really sad that he passed. We're having a memorial for him next week in the Yukon on solstice, where we'll spread his ashes in Wolf Creek and celebrate his accomplishments in hydrology and as a person, because all who know Rick knew he was a very special person. He loved everyone, and his famous quote at the end of the evening or at a point like this was, "Sean, no holding back tonight." So when you raise a glass tonight, raise it to Rick, raise it to Stefan, and those who came before us. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. So we'll start the awards with the CSSS awards. And I'd like to invite Steve Jones, the Secretary of CSSS, and Charles Scharnberger. Oh, I'm sorry. Because I started my notes earlier on today, and then the order was changed, and I didn't leave enough space on my page. And that's right, that's ES-SSA, because you can see the little arrow from ES-SSA who's later on in the evening. My apologies, Fran Wally, the CSSS Awards Chair.
That was exciting for a moment there. I thought, oh, my job is already done. So it's a great pleasure, and I'm going to ask our president, Dr. Nora Zaidi, to join me on stage to help present the awards. We're starting with our undergraduate student book awards. These are given out to undergraduate students who are not here with us today. They're listed in the booklet on your table, and but we hope they will be with us next year, maybe as grad students. There we go. Okay, and here they are. So I'm going to move along to the Student Travel Awards, and I'm going to call on the students to come up, and in the interest of time, if I can call on you, and we'll hold our applause till we've got everyone up here, and Nora will be handing out the Travel Awards to you, and we'll get a picture over to this side. So, I'll call up Olianka Adamalikan from the University of Manitoba, Teresa Adesanya, University of Manitoba, Leanne Ejak, McGill University, Carolyn Marshall, Dalhousie University, Kareen Preet Pata, University of British Columbia, Mailing Man, University of Toronto, Scarborough, Akshit Puri, University of British Columbia, Ahmed Lassisi, University of Manitoba, Inderjot Chahal, University of Guelph. Oop, you have to stay up here. So we're going to just go over onto this side and maybe, yeah. And if, yeah, that's great. Oh, no. Inderjot Chahal, I think I've said. UK Katanda, Trent University. And our last, Mayowa Adalikan from the University of Manitoba, is not here with us tonight. Congratulations. No. And our last student. Okay. I guess all here. Okay. Now, if we can get a picture of everybody, and you need to get into, yeah. Can you get into the picture as well? Yeah. Yep. Great, thank you. Oh, yes. You get a mug as well. Congratulations. Congratulations. Excellent. Well done. Congratulations. Excellent. Our travel awards provide funding for students to attend our annual meeting, but we also have travel awards for international soil science meetings. The International Student Travel Awards this year go to Tian Chen of McGill University and Akshit Puri from the University of British Columbia. So if you could come forward, please. And we don't have anything for them. Yeah. Congratulations. Well, congratulations. And we'll get you to go over here. Oh, just 10. And we'll stand here. Our next award is the CSSS Pedology Travel Award. And this is provided to a member of the CSSS to promote pedology at an international conference. And this year, our award winner is Dr. Louis-Pierre Comeau. Okay, now we're into our presentation awards. And importantly, I have them here with me. So we're starting with the C.F. Bentley Award for the Best Oral Presentation. And we're going to do this starting at the second runner-up. There we go. The second runner-up is Inderjot Chahal. From the University of Guelph. Congratulations, and I'll let you guys go over and take a picture then, and I'll move on. Thanks. And while they're getting their picture taken, I'll move to our first runner-up, and I would invite Jeremy Kiss from the University of Saskatchewan. No, it's fine. You get a mug too. Well, thank you so much. And that's the important bit.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. And it's very exciting then to be able to introduce our first place winner for the best oral presentation, Alexia Berthelon from McGill University. Congratulations, great job. And you have to go and get, yep. Oh, okay. Okay, fair enough. Our next set of awards are for the best student poster. And again, I'll start with our second runner-up, Akshik Puri from the University of British Columbia.
Thank you.
Congratulations, well done.
Thank you.
And over for a picture. Yes, okay. The first runner-up for the best student poster, I'd invite Akeem Sharonke from the University of Saskatchewan. Oh, here comes Akeem. Well done. Congratulations. Congratulations. Well done. Okay, so our final award winner is for the first place, so it's the best CSSS student poster, and I'd invite Karan Preet Pata from University of British Columbia.
Can we go together for the photo?
Sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm so happy.
Congratulations. I got to tell you, it's really wonderful to be able to give out those awards. The students are so happy as they're coming up here, and I'm so happy for them, so it's a real pleasure. I'm now going to be presenting the CSSS Fellow Award. And the CSSS Fellow is nominated by members of the Society, and it's my great pleasure to introduce tonight our newest CSSS Fellow, Dr. Scott Chang. Congratulations. Can we go through? Normally we would invite the nominator to present the award for Scott, and Dr. Charlie Arshad led the nomination, but he was unable to be here tonight, so he asked that I share a few words about Dr. Chang. And so I'm going to shamelessly use words from the nomination package, which included several letters that all tell the same story. And I quote, Dr. Chang embodies the qualities of leadership and productivity that we wish to celebrate with the designation of Fellow of the Canadian Society of Soil Science. He will be an asset to the Society in such a role. Dr. Chang is a professor in forest soils and nutrient dynamics in the Department of Renewable Resources at the University of Alberta. He completed a PhD in forestry at UBC, an MSc in soil science at the Institute of Soil Science at the Chinese Academy of Sciences, and a Bachelor of Agronomy with a soil science major at Zhejiang University in the People's Republic of China. Scott is an unusually productive scientist, and he shares his research through high-quality publications, numerous excellent presentations at conferences, and through his many outreach and extension activities. Since he was appointed at the U of A in 2001, he's supervised 15 PhD and 15 MSc students, and I think he has 7 more in the works right now in his lab. Scott has over 230 refereed publications and has over 2,700 external citations, so it's very clear that Scott's research is making a very big impact. His research on nitrogen and carbon cycling using isotopic methods and microbial indicators has advanced the fields of nutrient management in forestry, land reclamation, carbon sequestration, greenhouse gas emissions, and agroforestry. His work in the Alberta oil sands has been particularly timely and first-rate, addressing environmental issues of national and international significance. He served as an associate editor of the Canadian Journal of Soil Science and currently is editor of the Canadian Journal Special Issues. He also serves on the editorial board of as an associate editor of 4 other soil science journals. He is particularly known for his contributions for the North American Forest Soils Conference, and the International Forest Soils Community. Perhaps Scott's most noteworthy contributions come from his role as a mentor and teacher of young soil scientists, both here and abroad. Dr. Chang is the recipient of many awards and recognitions, including the prestigious Killam Professorship at the University of Alberta, and he was recently named a Fellow of the Soil Science Society of America and a Fellow of the American Society of Agronomy. Dr. Chang's impressive scientific credentials, service to soil science, international stature, and his excellence as a teacher and mentor of soil scientists are all very worthy indeed of recognition as a Fellow in the Canadian Soil Science Society. Please join me in congratulating Dr. Scott Chang as the newest Fellow of the CSSS.
Well, thank you, Frank. I was in Korea earlier this week, attending another conference, and spent the whole day yesterday traveling back to attend this one. And it's really exciting to travel half the world, be able to catch the later half of this conference. If some of you see me feeling sleepy, that's probably going to explain why. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Canadian Society of Soil Science for giving me this really prestigious award. The CSSS has always been held really close to my heart, and so this recognition means a lot to me. And obviously I feel really lucky that I have been chosen to receive this award. I know in the audience, in the country, we have lots of really deserving colleagues for this award. So I feel really, really happy and really lucky to get this. I would like to thank particularly the award selection committee for selecting me for this award. Secondly, I would like to thank Dr. Charlie Asher, Frank Lani, Bill McGill, and Mary Beth Adams for preparing this nomination for me. Next, I would like to thank all the students, visiting scientists, postdocs, technicians, and a large number of collaborators that I worked with over the years. And I see Dan Surratt sitting in the audience. Dan, can you stand up? I would like to use Dan as an example of students in the past that made tremendous contributions. I think Dan was one of the best MSc students who went through my lab. As far as I remember, he published 4 papers, peer-reviewed articles out of his master's thesis. I was only giving a few minutes, and I would like to thank also my wife and family for their understanding and support throughout these years for my work. Obviously, with the kind of work that I have completed, it was always busy. And so, thanks again to the Society and everyone else who made contributions to my research program over the past for this award.
ends it for the awards for the CSSS, but on behalf of the CSSS, I just want to echo the earlier remarks and thanks to the organizing committees, and thanks for having us part of your conference as well.
Okay, I get this right this time. So now we'll do the CSAFM awards. So if Manasa McAvell, please come up and give those awards. Oh, okay.
Thank you very much. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the organizers of this conference for a wonderful work that they've done. I would also like to thank the presenters, all the presenters. In particular, I would like to thank the students for the presentations that they did here. Without the students, I don't think this conference would have been a success. So can you please join me in giving hands to the students, please? May I then call upon the president-elect, or the president who will be taking over from me, to come over, please. And before we give the awards, I would like to hand over the presidentship to Aston. And as a tradition, I would like to give him this box. And inside this box, there is a net radiometer, which he has to take care of.
Thank you very much, Manasa. I promise to take care of it. Now we are going to, present awards from the Canadian Society of Agricultural and Forestry Meteorology. There's no slide?
Where's the slide? Yeah, I think it's down here.
Okay.
Down here.
Anyway, our first award is the Cambo Scientific, the Bert Turner Award. And this is going to be presented by the representative from Cambo. Roland, I'm not sure if you are here. Please join us over so that you can present the award. The Cambo Scientific Brit Award goes to Ellie Wood from Cornell University. By the way, the Cambo Award carries, an amount of about, well, not about, amount of $1,000. We'll ask you to remain on the table. Our next award is, I guess, the best oral presentation, and this goes to Kirsten Lees from the University of Reading. They are very international. Kirsten, are you around? Next we have poster presentations, and for poster awards, we actually had a tie. We have two people that are sharing the award, and these are Mark Libby from the University of Guelph and Vera Sokolov from Laurier University. And now we come to probably one of our most, prestigious award. For many years, we have not given the fellowship award, but this year we are quite honored in that we have a candidate and the recipient of the Canadian Society of Agricultural and Forestry Meteorology Fellowship Award goes to Dr. Claudia Wagner-Riddell. In the house. Just before she accepts the award, I just have a few remarks that were given to us about our work. Claudia has been a leader in the measurement of greenhouse gases in agricultural ecosystems. She's particularly recognized internationally for her expertise in measuring nitrous oxide emissions. Numerous researchers now use the techniques developed by Claudia, which has advanced our understanding of the impacts of agricultural practices. And she has also mentored a number of people, numerous students over here, and several research associates. And so it is really our privilege and honor to present this award to Claudia. I guess she will say a few words.
Sorry, this is a total surprise. And I'd like to thank the nomination committee and all Black group, a few people that inspired me along the way, including George Turtel, Terry Gillespie, and Monique Leclerc, who was a PhD student at the time when I started my PhD. She was just finishing. And she had children, and she was finishing her PhD. And when I heard that, I thought, okay, I guess you can do that. You can be female, have kids, and perhaps be a prof one day. So,
hey, we deserve a group picture, please.
Okay, now I think I can ask Steve and Charles to please come up on behalf of the ES-SSA.
Okay.
Over here.
That's not a microphone. So we'll start off with the ES-SSA Student Awards. Right, so these are basically the best student papers at this meeting. And we have two of them. We have, I'm not sure if I'll pronounce this correctly, Ruija Wang of the University of Alberta, and John Onwumieka, I'm not sure if I'm saying that, from McGill University. Please come up. Are they here?
Mention Heather also. Heather Shambles.
Okay, I guess they're not here, so we can't hand them their award. I have to do that later. But also, we don't have a slide for this. We also had a student travel award we got this year, and Hannah Shambliss. Please stand up. We won our student travel award this year. She's from Boston College. So I'll turn it over to my friend Charlie for the next award.
Yes, I'm here to present the Jesuit Seismological Association Award on behalf of the Eastern Section of the Seismological Society of America. Because I suspect that few, if any of you, are familiar with the Jesuit Seismological Association, I thought I should say a word or two about that first. The Jesuits, the Society of Jesus, have been involved in seismology since the late 19th century. And in fact, so much so that for many decades of the 20th century, seismology was known as the Jesuit science. The Jesuit Seismological Association was founded in 1925 for the purpose of collecting and disseminating seismological data, particularly as gathered at the various colleges and universities operated by the Society of Jesus around the world. The following year, 1926, the Eastern Section of the Seismological Society of America was founded, and from the very beginning there was a very close relationship between these two organizations. By the 1980s, most of the seismological stations operated by the JSA had become obsolete, and other institutions, governmental and academic, had taken over the role of collecting, analyzing, and disseminating seismological data. And so the JSA, the Jesuit Seismological Association, went out of existence. But before they did, they bequeathed their treasury to the Eastern Section of the SSA with the request that the Eastern Section establish an annual award for contributions to observational seismology, especially in Eastern North America. So, if you have I will read the plaque. So the first award was given to Professor Gil Bollinger of Virginia Tech in 1985. Since then, there have been 23 other award recipients, and tonight I present the 24th JSA Award for contributions in observational seismology to Dr. Chris Kramer of the University of Memphis. there's a plaque, and probably which Chris will appreciate more, a check. The plaque says, in recognition of outstanding contributions to our understanding of earthquakes and ground motion in Central and Eastern North America, awarded by the Eastern Section of the Seismological Society of America.
Chris, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for the honor of receiving the JSA award. When I received the email from the Eastern Section Secretary, I was a bit stunned, but it is gratifying to have contributed toward a better understanding of earthquake hazards in the Central and Eastern North America. Just as a little background, the study of earthquake hazards is an interdisciplinary field, as you may know. Making a contribution involves a dependency on contributions of colleagues and integrating the works of others. Many of these contributions are by several people in this room tonight, as well as past recipients of the JSA award. I'm also grateful for the guidance that I've received over the years, especially my undergraduate mentor, Frank Baines, who got me into geophysics and showed me how much fun geophysics can be. Also, my graduate mentors at Stanford University, George Thompson, Robert Kovach, and especially Dave Bohr. I also, when I finally got into earthquake hazards, I got a lot of guidance when I was with the state of California at that time from Mark Peterson, Art Frankel, and Norm Abrahamson, who provided me a wonderful introduction and background in this field. When I came to Memphis to work first for the USGS at the Earthquake Center at the University of Memphis, and then later at the Earthquake Center itself, I received a lot of blessing and help and guidance from several people who work back here and out west, like Bill Joyner, Steve Hartzell, Buddy Schweig, Joan Gonberg, John Ebel, Gail Atkinson, Martin Chapman, Christine Goulet, and many others. I also had help from several CIRI graduate students in my research, and I hope I have provided help to them in their careers also. You probably noticed that there's a constant theme of guidance beyond myself and my research opportunities. Time and again, I've been blessed with guidance and these opportunities. These are not random happenstances, but divine direction for which I am very grateful. And lastly, I'm also very, very grateful to my wife, Stephanie, for her love, support, and caring since we met in 1981. Without her, I likely would not have come back to the east to work on seismic hazards and be standing here tonight, but probably retired someplace in California. Thank you very much for the JSA award and for your help in my career. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. I think we'll going to take a quick pause from the awards, and I'd like to have Fiona Derbyshire come up, and figured it's a good time midstream to give a plug for next year's joint meeting with CMOS and the IUGG in Montreal.
Thanks a lot, Rich. So I am head of the local organising committee for the upcoming meeting, which, as Rich said, is a joint meeting between the International Union of Geodesy and Geophysics, IUGG, CGU, and CMOS, and it's taking place in July 2019 in Montreal. Just a very brief overview for those of you who aren't familiar with the IUGG. So it's an umbrella organisation made up of 8 different associations, which gives it a very multidisciplinary scope. So they're comprising cryosphere, geodesy, geomagnetism, hydrology, atmospheric science, oceanography, seismology, and volcanology. So there's something there for pretty much everybody, I believe. The IUGG has its individual associations carrying out various different scientific workshops and meetings on a yearly or bi-yearly basis, but every 4 years it has its General Assembly, which brings together all of the associations. Rather like the Olympics, cities and countries have to bid to host the next meeting, and so in 2015, which was the previous meeting in Prague, the Czech Republic, Montreal made a bid and succeeded, and so now the hard work starts to put together the conference. July 8th to the 18th at the Palais de Congrès in Montreal. We're hoping to get about 5,000 people at this meeting, especially given that it is a joint meeting between the IUGG and 2 Canadian societies. So I'd very much encourage you to attend this meeting. Here's our website. So you've got the web address up here, and this is actually the title page of the website. Also, to encourage you a little more and to give you some more information about the IUGG, you'll see a number of these leaflets on the tables. Please take them home. Apart from anything else, 1 leaflet is both informative and light. 100 leaflets is very heavy, and I'd rather not have to take them all home. But to cut a long story short, I look forward to welcoming you to Montreal next July. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Fiona. So now we'll start with the CGU awards, and we'll be going by, or doing the section awards first. So looks like Biogeosciences is the first up. So can I have the president of the Biogeosciences section, Murray Richardson? You can clap. Thank you.
Okay, so glad to be announcing these awards. On behalf of the Biogeosciences Executive, our first award is for the Best Student Poster. And from the University of, Best Student Oral Presentation Award from the University of Saskatchewan, Nick Dilla. Come on up, Nick.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, place your after. Yeah, stay up. Yep, stay up.
Next award is for the Best Student Poster, also from the University of Saskatchewan.
Oh, come on.
Daniel Karen.
Next up, Geodesy. President of Geodesy section. Vice President, we'll just go through the executive till. Go.
Athena Paido from York University, the best student.
And next, the hydrology section. Claire Oswald, President of Hydrology section.
Thanks, Rich. All right, so the first award is the DM Gray Award for Best Student Paper in Hydrology. And our winner is Kirsten Grant from the University of Waterloo. Okay, our next award is the Campbell Scientific Award for Best Student Poster in Hydrology. And our winner is Victor Tang from McMaster University.
Congratulations, Kirsten and Victor. You'll soon learn the hydrology section, the tradition of what you get to do with those cash prizes. Next up, Solid Earth. Claire, or is she? Oh, there. Good to see you.
Best student paper from the Solid Earth section, Xiaowen Liu, University of Alberta.
So next up is the Stan Patterson Scholarship in Canadian Glaciology. And this year's winner is Jeff Crompton from Simon Fraser University. And Jeff emailed today that unfortunately he couldn't make it to the conference, but we will pass on his award and everyone's congratulations. Next is the Don Gray Scholarship in Canadian Hydrology. And the winner from Wilfrid Laurier University, Elise Devois. Don't stop now. The Chevron Canada Outstanding Student Paper in Seismology. From Western University, Samantha Palmer. No. Yeah, when the seismologists start to leave the room, I guess we... Okay, and next up, the CGU Best Student Paper Award. This is unusual. We have two winners. We have from the University of Waterloo, Frederick Chang, and from Queen's University, Colin Walter. I'll ask Claire to come back up to do the CGU Young Scientist Award, please.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm very happy to be here to be able to present this award to Dr. Pascal Audet from the University of Ottawa. I would like to read some excerpts from the nomination letter that was submitted by Dr. Audet's PhD supervisor, Dr. Michael Bostock at the University of British Columbia. It is my pleasure to write the nomination letter for Pascal as a most deserving candidate for the 2018 Young Scientist Award. By combining a facility for both theory and observation and a keen appetite for challenging problems, Pascal has made key contributions in two geophysical disciplines, seismology and tectonophysics. Pascal is already widely recognized internationally for his contributions to subduction zone science. He has numerous papers on this topic. One of his particularly important publications comes from his PhD research and it is published in Nature. Pascal recognized that the small travel time differences in waves scattered from the upper and the lower boundaries of subducting oceanic crust could be used to characterize its internal velocity structure, in particular Poisson's ratio. Oceanic crust Poisson's ratio, measured beneath southern Vancouver Island at depths between 20 and 35 kilometers, are so high that they can only be due to the presence of fluid-filled fractures at high pore pressure. Consequently, the subducting oceanic crust must be overpressured, requiring that fluid permeability of the plate boundary is very low. There are numerous consequences of this observation that are now coming to light. For example, the plate boundary seal appears to create the frictional conditions that enable the intensely studied but poorly understood phenomenon of episodic tremor and slip, or ETS. It also plays an important role in how and where the fluids are distributed within the forearc crust that in turn influence crustal seismogenesis. Another example is his recent work with Roland Bergman, which was published in Nature Geoscience. This identified an intriguing correlation between the bulk forearc crustal composition and ETS recurrence intervals as a function of distance along dip in the Cascadia subduction zone, and more generally across different subduction zones where ETS is observed. Their explanation, namely that the temperature and pressure dependent silica solubility and precipitation is responsible for both observations, is compelling and is now being tested against seismological and geological observations around the world. Pascal is not content to simply sit in front of his computer and exploit large quantities of seismological data that are available. Rather, he is a very active field geophysicist since he was a graduate student, and he is actively engaged and very enthusiastic in fieldwork that addresses key tectonic problems in very challenging conditions. He is now the lead in a major Canadian effort that complements the ongoing EarthScope Alaska initiative with seismic stations in the adjacent Yukon and Northwest Territories. These stations include 7 of his own that are located within the remote Mackenzie Mountains region. The data recorded at these stations will significantly extend the scope of the EarthScope effort and enable a fuller understanding of the forces that shape the North American Northern Cordillera. If these efforts were not already impressive, Pascal is also concurrently running a small seismic array on Banks Island in the Canadian High Arctic. Pascal's prowess in research is underscored by the substantial funding and many accolades that he has earned over the past few years. His fieldwork is funded through CFI, NSERC, and NRCan. He was recently awarded a prestigious Sloan Fellowship and Ontario Early Researcher Award on the basis of significant contributions made in this early stage of his career. Equally revealing are the large number of invited talks that he has delivered at some of the most prestigious institutions, including Princeton, Caltech, MIT, and the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. But perhaps what is most impressive is the large number of students that he has inspired, mentored, and equipped with the skills to succeed in earth science careers. And all of this has been done in less than 8 years as a junior faculty member. Pascal is remarkable among young earth scientists in his diversity of talent and his achievements across the disciplines. He is skilled in computation, theory, data analysis, and fieldwork, and he has already made enduring contributions in both seismology and tectonic physics. I would also like to add that I think that Pascal is an amazing scientist, and he is also an amazing person. And I'm very honored to present Pascal Audet as the Canadian Geophysical Union Young Scientist this year.
The actual award. Congratulations.
Hi, everyone. Well, thank you so much for this award. It's very humbling to receive this prize and recognition from my peers and from the community. As probably as the previous award winners of this particular award, it's also really nice to say that you can be called young one last time. My expiration date is September 2018, so I'll enjoy it. So as with any award, this one represents a cumulative effort of many people, mentors, collaborators, and students, as was mentioned before. Just to highlight a few key people now that have had a huge impact on my work and my career trajectory. First, I'd like to thank Jean-Claude Marichal from UQAM University, who is now retired, who gave me my first chance in research and taught me to become a researcher. Michael Bostock, who wrote me the nomination letter, my PhD advisor and a world-class researcher who taught me to go for the big problems. He was also a great example of a great work-life balance that I can be achieved in academia. I also owe a huge thank to Mark Jelinek at UBC, who was very influential during my PhD and gave me the opportunity to do a postdoc at UC Berkeley. And at UC Berkeley, Roland Bergman was my postdoc advisor, who was a tireless researcher, a source of inspiration, and a very kind and very supportive person. There's also a long list of collaborators, and among them, I would like to mention Andrew Schaefer, who is sitting there and filming. Hi, Andrew. He's currently my postdoc, but he will be, I hope, a long-time collaborator once he moves to NRCan. Obviously, many students who keep me on my toes and keep me young and creative. Jeremy, Clement in this room. I'd also like to mention Phil, Steve, Elise, and Morgan, who couldn't make it today, and my former students as well, who I'd like to acknowledge as well. Now, I'd like to say a few words in French, if you don't mind. J'aimerais profiter de l'occasion pour remercier ma famille, René, Nancy et France, pour leur soutien. J'aimerais aussi dédier ce prix à mon père, Denis, qui aurait été très fier aujourd'hui de me voir ici. Finalement, mon épouse Marie-Ève, qui a fait plusieurs sacrifices et qui continue de me soutenir inconditionnellement. So finally, I'd like to thank the CGU, the executive, and everybody here for supporting their members and the entire community for making this job the best job in the world. Thank you.
Okay, before we do the last award, I just wanted to thank a couple people before I forget. You've seen them running around all week, but I really want to thank Nicholas Kinar, our photographer for the event, who's volunteered a lot of his time to photographing and videotaping all the plenary talks, tonight's event. So we now have a CGU YouTube channel where all of our plenary talks will be, and I've been told if we get 100 people to, what do you do on YouTube? Subscribe, like? 100 people subscribe, then we go from one of those crazy YouTube addresses with all the letters and numbers to an actual CGU, UGC YouTube channel. And I think we'll keep doing this, streaming the main events at the conference going forward. So thanks a lot, Nicholas. I know it's been great. And my right-hand man at these conferences, Jeff McKenzie, who does his best. I still screw up, but gets everything in order for myself as well as others, and really keeps the conference, once we're here and doing things, organized and moving like a finely tuned machine. Jeff. And we've met the rest of the executive through the executive positions through the section presidents and Jeff just now, but I'd like to just also acknowledge Laura Brown, our treasurer. Stand up, Laura. And Joe Carl Mitchell, our first VP. All right, so we're on to the Tuso Wilson. And I'd like to ask Julian Lohman and Sam Butler to come up and read the citation. Well, of course, the J. Tuzo Wilson Medal is the most prestigious award that the Canadian Geophysical Union gives out to any of its members. It is the award for a lifetime career achievement in promoting geophysics and outstanding research. And this year's recipient is Professor Gary Jarvis of York University. I'll just remind you also of the namesake for the award, the contributions of J. Tuzo Wilson, perhaps the most outstanding geophysicist in Canadian history. He is a giant amongst geophysicists. He's best known for three particular contributions he made to the field: the recognition of the importance and the origin of transform faults on the ocean floor, recognition of the opening and the closing of the Atlantic and the supercontinent cycle, which is now known in many textbooks as the Wilson cycle, and recognition that the origin of the Hawaiian Islands comes from a hotspot below the oceanic plate, and that the Emperor Seamount chain originated with movement of the plate across that hotspot. So, having given you that background on Tuzo, I'm going to go on now to say some things about Gary. And then after I finished telling you a bit about the person, Sam will step up here and tell you something about Gary's contributions and his contributions in particular to research and mentoring. So I'd like to begin by saying, being asked to participate in introducing Gary Jarvis in this evening's awarding of the Tuzo Wilson Medal is one of the greatest pleasures of my own academic career. I first met Gary in 1989, when I was an undergraduate at the University of Toronto. Gary spent much of 1989-90 at U of T on a sabbatical in the physics department during the year in which my focus started to shift towards geophysics. Our casual chats with the visiting professor led to my personal fascination with the research field in which Gary became identified as one of Canada's leaders. Upon graduation, I enthusiastically accepted an offer to begin working on graduate studies at York University in computational geodynamics. Gary also started his academic career in the Department of Physics at the University of Toronto, where he juggled a love for the outdoors with his interest and aptitude for natural science. Upon his own graduation, Gary decided to further follow these two passions by heading west to begin a master's degree with Gary Clark at the University of British Columbia. During his 2 years at UBC, Gary published an impressive 4 papers as an MSc student, all in the Journal of Glaciology. Now, I have to admit I was never quite sure of the exact reason for Gary's change, of course, from the glaciology field to computational geodynamics. I think I assumed it was a calculation of a different sort. After learning that he met his wife and life partner, Elaine, serendipitously, after stopping to help her and a friend with car trouble somewhere on the roads between Banff and Jasper. So I concluded that spending a lot of time up on a glacier could place some obstacles on your social life. However, I think I may have gotten the rest of the story for the first time from Elaine a few nights ago when we were having dinner. I was told how Gary's letter writing in his tent on the glacier doing field work was rudely interrupted one night by the appearance of a grizzly bear. While looking for a midnight snack, the bear apparently made a Hollywood-style entrance by slicing open the side of Gary's tent, and in the darkness, fortunately overlooked Gary,
and instead became rather more interested in the camp's cheese rations for the good of all of his future students and colleagues. So, whether it was a newly heightened awareness of self-preservation or a change in academic curiosity, to the great benefit of Gary's future students and colleagues, in 1975, after working at the McGill Computing Center, where Elaine completed her law course, the couple left for Cambridge University. There, Gary had been awarded the Commonwealth Graduate Scholarship and would begin work on computational models of mantle convection and lithospheric deformation with Professor Dan McKenzie. I'll leave it to Sam Butler to summarize Gary's achievements in geodynamics as a researcher and a mentor, and will instead return to a thread of his biography stemming from a lasting influence of Gary Clark, who is known to many of us as a former president of the CGU. Involvement in our national union was passed on to Gary Jarvis, who subsequently influenced his students and postdocs, like myself and Sam. Gary Jarvis served the CGU from its early inception as the editor of the union's newsletter, and then took the additional role as union secretary. After 8 years as the editor of the Elements newsletter, Gary became the union's vice president in 2003, and then the president from 2007 to 2009, followed by chairing the Science Policy Committee of the union. In 2009, his outstanding service to the Canadian Geophysical Union was recognized by his receipt of the Award for Meritorious Service. In addition to CGU service, Gary was a member of the Board of Directors of Lithoprobe from 1993 to 1998, and chaired the Program Committee of SETI in 1994 when that group first met in Canada. He has also represented Canada as a committee member on international societies such as IUGG and IASP. Gary's service to the Canadian geophysics community has been simultaneously matched by equally active service to York University. Following 3 years in the Department of Physics at the University of Toronto as an NSERC University Research Fellow and an assistant professor, Gary became an assistant professor at York, where he continued for another 3 years as an NSERC Research Fellow. During his years in the Department of Earth and Atmospheric Science, Gary served as the departmental chair for 4 years, as well as co-director of the Center for Earth and Space Science. During that period, he guided the department through the ushering in of the university's earliest engineering programs, specifically geomatics and space engineering, while continuing to guide a research group of 5 PhDs and postdocs. Over the last 15 years of his career at York University, Gary has served in a rich variety of capacities, compiling a list of contributions to numerous committees, including taking 6 roles as a committee chair in the Faculty of Graduate Studies and accepting the position of Associate Dean Academic Affairs. In his service to the CGU, his department and his university is indicative of his giving nature and a career characterized by admirable achievement obtained with utmost modesty. I will conclude by quoting several of the letters these are the citation letters, of course, that also note this aspect of Gary's service contributions. He is a credit to Canada for the magnanimous image he projects to the outside world. Professor David Ewan of the Minnesota Supercomputing Institute. Unequivocally, geophysics in Canada has been advanced and strengthened by Gary's many roles as a mentor and leader. Professor Russell Sklevitz, Chair of Earth Sciences at the University of Toronto. I have been honored to work with both Gary and Tuzo Wilson. Gary is a scholar of the highest order, as was Tuzo, and both have made lasting contributions to science and their country. Professor Jerry Mitrovica, Department of Earth and Planetary Science at Harvard University. I'll now turn over to Professor Sam Butler, head of the Department of Geological Sciences at the University of Saskatchewan, who will tell us about Gary's research highlights and has himself described Gary as a leader in the earth science community at York University and across Canada. Sam.
Okay, so I'll pick up on sort of where Julian left off in terms of Gary's research career. So in 1973, Gary went to Cambridge University to work on a PhD with Dan McKenzie. And at the time, the concept of mantle convection was still, in its, and certainly numerical modeling of it was decidedly in its infancy. So their first paper from Gary's PhD showed how to incorporate the effects of finite compressibility into the mantle convection equations and presented numerical solutions. So this paper has been cited hundreds of times, and it really remains to this day the definitive reference regarding the effects of compressibility in mantle convection. Also, while working with Dan McKenzie, Gary published a paper looking quantitatively at sedimentary basin evolution. And again, this was one of the first studies to couple continuum geodynamics to measurable surface processes. And again, has been cited hundreds of times. So after completing his PhD, Gary took an NSERC postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Toronto, working with Dick Pelletier. And Gary and David Yoon, who's now at the University of Minnesota, were Dick's first two postdocs. And Gary and Dick would then, they would go on to publish, or one of their many papers. In one paper, they were the first to show that the full numerical solutions of the mantle convection equations were in good agreement with the predictions of boundary layer theory. This verification justified the use of parametrized convection models to study the Earth's thermal history. So much of what we know about the Earth's very long-term evolution, at least in terms of its thermal state, comes from these studies. Gary and Dick also used their mantle convection model in comparison with surface observations and argued that convection in Earth's mantle was not strongly layered. Following his postdoc, Gary became an assistant professor at the University of Toronto. And one of his first graduate students was Jerry Mitrovica, who Julian's already mentioned, who of course has gone on to a very distinguished career in geodynamics. Part of Jerry's MSc work with Gary, in collaboration with Chris Beaumont, involved calculating the effects of subducting slabs in mantle convection model on topography within a continent. So this vertical tectonics, as it was called, represented a very significant shift in thinking, and this paper has been very influential in our understanding of such things as relative sea level change and sedimentary basin formation. So I'd like to read a little bit from Jerry's letter also, and it speaks a bit about Gary's mentorship. So Jerry writes, "Let me turn to Gary's record as a mentor. I have worked with many scientists at all phases of career, and I have never met a more generous colleague than Gary. As a young scientist working under his supervision, Gary spent countless hours with me every day if necessary to make sure I mastered the fundamentals of mantle fluid dynamics. Indeed, my dog-eared copy of Chandrasekhar's Hydrodynamic and Hydromagnetic Stability remains on my desk to this day. He also provided me with an exhaustive list of important articles, as he called them, and in our discussions, he pushed me to have the main results of this literature at my fingertips. To this day, I lean on his training in my own supervision, and when I get frustrated by time away from my own research, I remember how important Gary's patient mentoring was to me. This generosity also extends to the research projects he started me on. When I began my graduate work, Gary talked about a problem he and Chris Beaumont had discussed involving the dynamic tilting of continents, driven by viscous stresses associated with mantle flow, dynamic topography in the current parlance. He could have easily and more quickly performed the research and written the paper himself, but he gave the idea to me. The resulting papers are highly cited, and they provided me with an early momentum that was a key part of any subsequent success I have had as an academic. But make no mistake, this early work was the product of Gary and Chris's intellect and insight, not mine. I'm not sure if Julian Lohman is also writing in support of Gary. He was, his nomination. But it is certain that he benefited from the same level of remarkable generosity. Okay, so after being at the University of Toronto, Gary then moved to the Department of Earth, Space, Science, and Engineering at York, as it's now called. In the early 1990s, mantle convection modelers started carrying out simulations in more Earth-like curved geometries, like cylinders and axisymmetric spheres and full spheres. And Gary was the first to recognize that important quantities like average temperature and surface heat flow can be obtained for geometries with different curvatures with the appropriate scaling. This is a very powerful idea, and it's been applied in calculating Earth's thermal history and as an efficient way to determine initial conditions for numerical models with different geometries, resulting in enormous savings in computation time. In the mid-1990s, Gary supervised Julian's PhD. Of course, Julian has gone on to become a professor, first at the University of Leeds and now at the University of Toronto. So Julian's PhD work consisted of simulating the supercontinent formation and breakup in mantle convection models. This was the first work to look at the Wilson cycle in the context of a self-consistent mantle convection model. And the work has been greatly influenced our thinking on and understanding of the Wilson cycle. So I would certainly have to point out that it's very appropriate then that the winner this year of the Wilson Medal is someone who's contributed greatly to our understanding of the Wilson cycle. Okay, on a personal note, I had the privilege of working on a brief postdoctoral fellowship with Gary in 2001. We worked at the time on investigating the effects of curvature in mantle convection models on the ability of flows to produce stresses of sufficient magnitude to rift supercontinents. Gary was also the chair of the Department of Earth and Space Science at Engineering at York at the time. And yet he always found lots of time to work with me, and it was always very thoughtful and rigorous in his methods, and I learned a great deal. In the last few years of his research, Gary and his group looked at such things as random walk models of continental accumulation, the effects of phase transitions and viscosity stratification on subduction rates, mantle flow reversals, and the effects of temperature dependence on mantle thermal expansivity. So I'd like to close actually by reading another quote from Jerry Mitrovica's letter, because I think he sums things up very nicely. And he wrote, "If the theory of plate tectonics can be said to mark the modern era in earth sciences, then Gary Jarvis is a giant of postmodern geophysics. His career has been characterized by fundamental contributions that have profoundly influenced our understanding of mantle dynamics and structure, and, in particular, their connection to the geological record. This influence is enduring and is based on a body of work distinguished by innovation, rigor, and clarity." So it's my great pleasure to help present the J. Tuzo Wilson Award to Gary Jarvis this year.
Thank you very much, Julian and Sam, for that kind and very generous citations. I'm truly honored to receive the Tuzo Wilson Award tonight. I believe this award is in part recognition of the importance of global geodynamics research in Canada, and I'm happy to have been a part of that. I'd like to just briefly spend a few minutes acknowledging some of the people who were important in influencing my career. And then I'd like to share with you my philosophy of life and show a few photos of how my evolution has evolved from glaciology to mantle convection. So Julian will answer your question. Okay, so first, people who are most influential in my life and my career, and first and foremost is my wife of 46 years, Ellen Jarvis, who has been a continuous supportive, love, encouragement, faith, my constant travel companion, and essentially the context in which I conducted my career. Thank you for that. Okay, Academically, Derek York at the University of Toronto taught a second-year course in geophysics, which I found so fascinating that I took every third and fourth year course in geophysics that I could fit into my physics degree. Eric Clark was my master's supervisor at UBC, who introduced me into numerical modeling of glacier temperatures. And while I was at UBC, Roy Hyman was visiting and taught a course on plate tectonics. Now this was early days of plate tectonics in 1972, and I was intrigued and wondered what was the possible driving mechanism. Dan McKenzie was my supervisor at Cambridge, and he introduced me to geophysical fluid dynamics and mantle convection modeling as a possible driving force for convection. And then Dick Peltier at the University of Toronto, who supervised my postdoctoral work, encouraged me to apply my convection modeling to whole mantle convection studies, and I've been doing that ever since, along with a group of fabulous students and collaborators, including Ross Brulier, Jeremy Trevika, Julian Lowen, Wanda Clark, Xiaozhang Wang, Ramzi Maglo, Gary Glassmeyer, Vincent Tao, Sam Butler, Peter Bumby, Carl Gable, Hossein Shana, Sanaz Diaz, and Scott King. I've been very fortunate to work with such a gifted group of scientists. Okay, so now my basic philosophy is that life is an adventure, and we should live it with passion. And the three passions in my life for the last about 50 years have been physics, mountains, and family. And so my passion for physics began in high school, was focused into geophysics at university, and a deep appreciation there for mathematics as a language of physics. At grad school, I found a new fascination in numerical modeling as a mathematical tool for understanding physics of the interior of originally glaciers and then mantle convection. And I've been doing this for 46 years, so it must be a passion. I also developed a passion for mountaineering in my undergraduate years as a consequence of spending 3 summers in the mountains in Western Canada doing glaciological field work. This involved a lot of rope work and climbing on rock and ice, and I found this so enjoyable that I applied to do my master's degree in glaciology, and this brought me 2 more summers of field work in the mountains of the Yukon Territory. And later, of course, as age sets in, mountaineering got downgraded to downhill skiing, but it was still a nice way to get to the top of mountains and take in the awesome views. Now, my passion for family essentially refers to an M, who I met during my 3rd summer of field work while I was working on the Athabasca Glacier in Banff National Park. And for those who aren't familiar with the Athabasca Glacier, I refer you to the CGU homepage, where they have a picture of the Athabasca Glacier in the honor of our meeting at the toe. So what happened was I was working on this glacier, and I was hitchhiking down the Banff-Jasper Highway, as Julian said, had a bit of car trouble. We bumped into each other and ended up spending the rest of the summer hiking and climbing around this part of the world. We were married the next year, and then in 1973, Ellen accompanied me as a field assistant to a steel glacier in the Yukon Territory. So she had some considerable experience in the mountains as well. And of course, in the natural course of things, we had 2 children and 3 grandchildren. Right. So the way these passions overlap in time make me think I could have started this section by saying life is a Venn diagram, and that various passions that we should have in parallel. Okay, so now I'd like to show you a few photographs beginning with glaciology. And what I found exciting about fieldwork in glaciology was the idea of taking science that we study in the classroom and so on into the field. Or equally, I found science was a good excuse to be in the field. And so here we are in the accumulation zone of the Barron Glacier, and one of the things we were interested in at that point was the density of the ice packs that had fallen the previous winter. And so my colleague Rick Clark and I dug at least 6 of these snow pits. I'm sure some of you have all that work. In the ablation zone, we became interested in crevasses, and we discovered they were much more interesting on the inside and much more beautiful than they were on the outside. And working on ice, you're always wearing these crampons, which are tied to your climbing boots, and you can see in the blow up here, these spikes hold you onto the ice and keep you from falling. And this stood me in good stead when I did my master's degree in Yukon Territory, where there were these major ice blocks in a major crevasse field because the steel glacier had surged about 6 years prior to our arrival. And crampons kept us from falling off the side of these blocks, and that's, of course, we chose to. And this is another example of science as an excuse to be in the field. But we were doing science, and we were interested in drilling into the glacier and measuring the temperature profile. And so in the box at the top left, you'll see these black striations. These are crevasses, deep crevasses that resulted from the surge of the glacier when it moved a couple of kilometers in one summer. And between these crevasses were these large ice blocks, including the one that I was standing on. And we were drilling into these ice blocks to measure the temperature, and we expected to find the temperature followed the geotherm, starting at about -8 at the surface. But what we found instead was the temperatures were quite warm at the upper 50 or 60 meters of depth. And so we proposed a model of water-filled crevasses. Here's the crevasse field. The ice block I was standing on was between the crevasses. And when the water filled these crevasses, they formed a warm boundary condition at depth. So we set up my first real numerical modeling exercise where we looked at what would happen if the temperature was initially geothermal at T equals 0 and T equals 1, which is 1 year later. You see the ice is warming, and by T equals 6.5, which is the dark black line there, it was essentially going through our data points, which we measured. I found this incredibly exciting. It was a turning point in my career. I was hooked on the magic of mathematical modeling as a way of not only seeing the spatial distribution, but the temporal evolution of fields, in this case temperature and glaciers. Okay, so this got me going to numerical modeling. When I went to Cambridge, I started looking at mantle convection. If you ask me for a picture of mantle convection, this is what comes to mind. In my mind, it's a numerical grid on which we approximate temperature, velocity, and pressure, whatever, and obtain, in this case, this is an example of steady state temperature, but it shows the way in which we look at numerical modeling. So the numerical modeling, we start off with the basic conservation of mass momentum energy equations. These are the general equations. We have to solve them in terms of scalar forms specific to the coordinate system. We put them on a numerical grid like this. Every grid point I've blown up here has coordinates jk, which computers can run across in do loops. And so for the example here, these 50,000 grid points, we take about 100,000 time steps to evolve temperature forward in time. So we do about 5 billion calculations for each variable. And here's an example of one of the numerical models, just to give you an idea of the sort of thing we do. This is how we bring in the fourth dimension of time. And so for any given parameters, we can watch the fluid flow as if it's a laboratory experiment, except we can put in whatever geometry we want and put in any variables we want. Okay, so that's going to be enough of that. Moving on. We can also do these three-dimensional geometries, and Julian will recognize these graphics as there essentially is. So it looks like magic. It's really just a numerical realization of physics, and I find it very exciting despite some limitations. So my advice to young scientists is follow your passions, do what you find most interesting, work hard at it, have fun doing it, and get involved with your professional organizations such as the CGU. So in conclusion, I'd like to thank CGU for this wonderful award. Thank my colleagues who nominated me, those who wrote letters and selected my name. Thank you to all my students and colleagues that I've interacted with, and the CGU members that I've worked with for many years. And finally, thank you again for supporting me throughout my career, traveling with me, sharing a life of adventures, some of which are shown here. So the bottom line, life is an adventure. Oops, too far. So thank you for listening.
So, congratulations to all the award winners tonight across all the societies at this year's meeting. We had and thanks to all of you for coming and making this another great, successful meeting. And I hope to see you all next year in Montreal during the big IUGG meetings. I need a motion for just good. Good. All right. Thanks again, and good night.
Claudia here. She's here.
This is their laptop, right?
This is a laptop.
You've been everywhere.
I know. Feel bad. We gotta start. Oh, actually, I talked to him like Nick.
you finally cleaning up.